Okay, welcome. SUSE QE Tools workshop today will be a roadmap discussion. So I will share my screen and then we can go over the roadmap for the month of November 20. I'm going to the top of our wiki page for the SUSE QE tool team, and if we go to how we work, then we will find multiple ticket queries, and let's start with what we have done within the last time period. By default, we are looking at 60 days, but we had our roadmap discussion at the beginning of October, so we can just look back for it's actually 33 days or something, and then let's see what we did in this time period. So in 33 days, we managed to resolve 69 tickets. So that's just we are back to our usual mean velocity, meaning roughly 2 tickets resolved per day. And what we did there is a bit of support work and organizational changes, which I would say we can also see as necessary infrastructure work. We did 8 feature requests, 13 bug reports, and 43 not within the OpenGate project. We will look at those at the second step. Let's first look into feature requests. So we had one alert-related feature request about too many minion job failures, and actually what we did there is that with minion jobs, OpenGate has this notion of background jobs. We are using the minion framework for that, and there are multiple tasks which are done in background, like saving needles whenever you use the needle editor, or downloading assets when you use download URLs in assets, and also optimizing screenshots and processing the results when a job is finished. That's all done in minion jobs. And of course, failures can happen in that case, as in this asynchronous execution. The question is then, who should be notified about such failure? Is it the user? For example, you are unable to save a needle for various reasons, which could be in your infrastructure, then it may be good to inform you when you are using the needle editor that it wasn't possible to save that needle. In other cases, maybe it's more background cleanup work that is conducted here, and then the administrator should be notified about. So this is why we try to make that distinction here and make sure that we only really have a fail when there's really something that somebody needs to care about, and not if the system can recover by itself, and also addressing the right audience. Then we had a nice contribution from Pavel Dostal from Hack Week project, where Pavel started a dark mode implementation of the OpenQA web UI, and well, it wasn't like completely mergeable in a state at the end of last SUSE Hack Week. So this is why I thought it would be nice if we could help and support a bit in this direction. And the result is that we do have an OpenQA dark mode, and there were some after we deployed that, there were multiple things that people realized on various pages, and we already looked into some of those issues. But certainly in some other cases, the dark mode still has some rough edges, or let's say a bit of a weird contrast in some cases. So yeah, there's still some work that could be done for that in the future. Well, go on.
Yeah, just a short note. Well, well, first of all, thank you very much for the help finishing this pull request. Uh, what I think that now could be possible is that uh, now we can slowly fine tune the dark modes with small, tiny pull requests. So if some of you are using the dark mode and you don't like something, you can try and fiddle with the CSS and yeah, like now we can improve it slowly within smaller changes. So it it yeah, I think that like that it could be slowly fine tuned. That's
Right.
basically it.
Yep. Thank you very much. And I think this is also the state where I wanted to reach. I didn't want to have it perfect, but I wanted to have it so that, we have a really good starting base, and then individual contributors can, on based on individual pages and individual observations, you can just create, as Pavel said, likely tiny, small pull requests that are needed to fix CSS. Yeah. Thank you. There's one ticket, improve needles, their documentation and behavior. That one was linked to an issue report that we have received on the GitHub project of OpenGame, where we have these test variables within OpenGA, and one of those test variables is needle steer, which commonly you don't need to care about. But if you're using a custom test case directory, like a repository pointing to your personal Git fork, then maybe you also want to use different needles. For example, let's imagine you're introducing tests for a new application, a new GUI application, and for that you need new test code, but you also need new needles. Then you do have the possibility to just add needles to the default repository, even though the test code is not yet in, because normally needles that aren't used shouldn't be that harmful. But it can be nicer, and maybe it's also necessary for a repository where you don't have direct push access, that you want to have a separate needles directory. And those combinations did not always work out, because you can specify an absolute path, you can specify a relative path, and by default is trying to relate to what the worker cache is providing. So we improve not only the documentation but also the behavior. And one thing I want to mention here in particular, which is mentioned in the pull request, of course, that's explained in the documentation as well. But the important part is that you can use a special template variable with this percentage sign to say, I want to have a needles directory which is relative to whatever I specified in case there. And that would also allow to use a needle steer which is within your custom test distribution, for example. Now, next, we managed to conclude one epic, which is make reviewing OpenQA test results per squad easier. I need to take a look myself what specific subtasks we had in there. So the goal which we wanted to have is that as a within SUSE QE you have squads which have all their specific areas of work within OpenQA. Sorry about that. And we want to have that convenient workflows available specific for the squads. The specific subtasks that we had there is notifications about failed and unreviewed jobs. We already had that in before with email and AMQP, but in that case using Slack. That was already done many months ago. Now we just concluded the parent story. That also included that there was some problem on the to-do page. Dimster, I think you know that. This is also a story that was resolved some months ago already, that parallel fail jobs do not need a label anymore, and they shouldn't show up anymore in the test. And then we also have a fallback notification address. So if there's no specific address configured for any job group, then there's like one final notification channel that can be used. So for example, we also use that in combination with one chat room which receives all unreviewed test failures which are not linked to a specific job group. So yeah, that was done. We had the job status of running jobs on the worker page was wrong. So, you can also follow the page of individual workers, like assigned worker from a running job, or the overview page of all the workers. And from there on, you find also this little icon showing the status of job. That was like always gray, not showing the actual status, but same as on the flash test page and on others. This is now showing the real status, like if a job is running. Limit finish tests on /test but query configure and show complete number of jobs. So basically, what we do there is that, okay, let me show you here. If we go to that page, then you can see it's pretty fast to open and to display results, but there are many more jobs than what are shown here. So what we do is that we limit each group. Then, okay, on O3 by default, I mean, we have 102 jobs running, so this will not exceed the limit soon. And also for schedule, this is normally not the case, but in case there's like a really longer schedule, then it might be that this would exceed some limit. And then we would limit it, and we would only show a limited number of jobs. And for finished jobs, you can already see that by default, this is a limit to last 500 finished jobs. So it is possible to tweak that number. So let me show one example, which is quick. I could say limit 1. And then I see that this is limited to only one finished job. And this the same in the other way. You can tweak it to select a higher number. What we are working on is to have a generic limit everywhere so that we are preventing an overload of the system. And my plan is that eventually we would also include it in the UI so that it's possible to either combine it with a pagination or to use a different element configured to show more results, which is in particular useful when you're filtering or searching for results, because then by default you would only search within the 500 jobs. Maybe it makes sense then to look for a job further into the past. And yeah, and then we added a bit of code coverage. For concrete bugs, what we did is we worked on the password handling. So for example, one issue is mentioned here, supporting both empty and no password for SSH connection, as well as hiding passwords in some cases. So for example, the IPMI password was showing up in jobs if the job aborted prematurely, but not if it's like completing to the end. So if a test turned out to be failed or passed, then the password was already hidden. But if a job prematurely aborted, like with incomplete or so, then it would still show up, because the approach that was taken before was like masking the password afterwards. And now what we do is we make sure that it's never really passed on from the beginning when not necessary. So that helps. All right, then let me switch to grouping result by project, and we will look at the tickets in the OpenGay infrastructure first. So there, you can see how we handle some more reactive work. So there was one ticket about medium missing. It turned out that everything is just working as expected regarding the asset cleanup. It's just that, I managed to find some free space that we could assign, in this case, to OpenGay SUSE. So there's more space available to store assets for tests to execute. Then this one, OpenGay Worker 1, is for OpenGay OpenSUSE.org. It started with a problem that a machine didn't come up, and then after boot, we saw some failing services. And then we found that there are also problems in the S390 related containers that we use. And the final result is that S390 tests work now properly again on OpenGay OpenSUSE.org. Then help with adding monitoring for SLE maintenance update queue. So there was a request like, can we have on our internal Grafana monitoring instance, can we also monitor like a related data set, which is not really related to OpenGay, but the queue of SLE maintenance updates that need to be reviewed and approved or rejected, and we managed to add that one. Something about cables, flaky network issues, and what else do we have? Let's take a look in the QA project. Yeah, we have SLO alerts. That one I want to mention. We have this project OpenGate test. Okay, so this is the ticket project where by default all the O3 and OSD related test issue reports go in. And what we have there is defined service level objectives. So what we want to ensure is that if anybody is reporting an issue, that within a reasonable time, based on priority, an action is taken. And maybe the action is only like a reaction on the ticket, not necessarily the resolution, but maybe like urgency removal, like reverting a pull request or applying a workaround until the real issue is found. So what we had there is these queries which show if any tickets exceeds those limits, and also a proposal for reminder comments. And what we now have is with this query list defined here, we also have reminder comments on the according tickets by an automation service. And that one is looking at the different levels of priority, as well as making sure that tickets stay within the due date, because we want to take them seriously. There were specific issues that we found, like there were reminder comments on parent tickets, which are blocked by subtask, where you would say like, okay, there's not really anything that we should look at right here, because the subtasks are the ticket to look at, as well as some other minor issues which we have resolved. What else do we have? I'm looking for one ticket in particular, but never mind. I will just show the results in action. So for some period, we did not have PowerPC tests, and then also not for S390 on O3. And gladly, we could resolve that. So as you can see, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed PowerPC is rolling again, because we do have this streak of Tumbleweed snapshots released based on one replacement machine that we have put in place, replacing the original Power 8 machine. And we still have as planned to have at least another machine ready as a standby, so that we do not have a single point of failure. And if I look at S390, then we can also see that there were recent snapshots published. There is I asked yesterday, so what was the problem? Why are there no more recent snapshots in testing? I think it was related to GNU TLS, like that. Yeah. For Leap, if you're wondering, well, actually, I was wondering where is S390 and PowerPC for Leap, but there I don't know by whom, but the decision that was taken is to have this combined view, which is nice. It more or less also resembles how the SLE development is going on, because we have all 4 architectures in parallel for the product. So they are built in sync, and then they are tested in sync. Okay. Any questions or additions regarding the resolved tasks? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so I'm going to the top level view, which so far still has 5 sagas, which is what I'm commonly saying above on what we ideally should have. So this is not providing enough focus, meaning that the progress on the individual areas is also a bit slow. But what we have as an outlook is that an up-to-date and current QA setup in SUSE, this is like mostly related to the infrastructure maintenance. This is also related to SUSE moving offices. So, in Nuremberg, there was and there still is a data center at Nuremberg Maxtorf, and now there's a new office at Franken campus. And at both locations, there is the possibility to have data center or lab. And here we do need to do some work related to physically moving machines into a new lab, but also logical changes, like there are new network security zones being set up. So this is some work that was also planned by SUSE IT for this year. This is why we are conducting it this year, and is taking a lot of our focus, which hopefully is going on a lot in the background and invisible to you as users, which would be a good sign. Certainly also impacting OpenQA. And the next saga after that would be properly maintained maintenance QA tooling, which is some tools which had been which we managed to put into properly maintained multi-person open source projects, and we are on a good track to conclude that. Some tools like QEM board, QEM dashboard, OSC plugin, QAM, some minor scripts and such. So that are also planned to conclude soon. Looking into the complete backlog, So we have 94 tickets. Let me also show you on a more or less on a daily base. I look into this backlog status. The numbers slightly differ. So here it says overall backlog 92 issues, where 2 are excluded. They're showing up in the other query because these 2 are tickets with a lower level of visibility, so to say. So they're seen as secret or private tickets. This is why they don't show up on that public backlog. Like the bot cannot see them. That's the reason. We try to have a workable backlog, meaning tickets which members of the SUSE QA tools team can pick up whenever they are finished with their previous work. Then they would be able to pick up new tickets, which says 15 tickets now, where we define the limit. It should be between 10 and 40. So, not more than 40 so that we provide enough focus, and more than 10 so that we provide enough variety and flexibility for the team members to choose. We take the due date on tickets seriously, so there shouldn't be any tickets exceeding the due date. We triage all tickets where you put something like square bracket tools in the subject line, regardless of the project. We triage all tickets within the scope of the QA project. So whenever you create tickets which are in the QA project or OpenQA or infrastructure, then we will triage, but not the test specific projects. Meaning that we will I will decide if it should be something that we work on, then I'm putting target version ready. Or if I decide that this is something that we cannot or do not want to work on, then I'm putting target version future. Then we also have service level objectives for us as a team. So for priority, it's the same, that for immediate tickets, we want to make sure that there's an update well within a day. Let's say like even OpenQA, OpenSUSE.org is completely unreachable and down, then that would be the case for an immediate ticket. Urgent ticket, meaning they should receive an update within once a week, at least. For high tickets, well below a month, and for normal tickets, well below 1 year. I think this is actually a wrong description string here. So if anybody of you can provide a pull request to the QA tools backlog assistant to fix that string and say below 1 year, that would be all. Then for in progress tickets, we currently have 9 tickets. The limit there is that we want to stay at 10 tickets or lower, again, so that we are not diluting our focus too much. And we have 13 tickets in feedback, meaning that for them, most of them, we are waiting for external feedback, some confirmation by users, some question to be answered, or in some cases, waiting for validation from production. Could be when this is about some sporadic issues, then it's taking, maybe we wait some days or weeks to verify that, yeah, this issue really doesn't happen anymore, or we can't find it in the log file anymore. Questions about the backlog status? Oh, okay. So now let's take a look into the backlog in the particular tickets. So that's curious. So the backlog says just said 9 tickets in progress, and now it's 8. So what we are currently working on, I am working on conducting the migration of the user systems which are in Nuremberg Server Room 1, which is including most of the OpenQA workers, into new security zones, meaning they are in a different network, a different VLAN with a new IP range, and also a firewall guarding them from the access, meaning that we go step by step, and in each step we also take a look on which traffic should go in and which traffic should not go in and outside of the zone. Then we are working on Terraform recipes to replace OpenKE SUSE workers or the infrastructure of OpenKE SUSE together with workers in the cloud as a disaster recovery scenario. So this is not meant as a full-time replacement, but as a plan to have in the drawer to have ready in case of a disaster, so that we could recover the infrastructure and provide some interim solution, so that we are able to push out SLE maintenance updates, which are time critical, even though if the data center that we usually use is not available. We are supporting in getting a replacement hardware which is performance critical for HANA performance tests. We are working on an OpenGay API to get job results for a particular SLE maintenance incident. So similar to what the dashboard is already doing. But for that, it would be helpful if we can go more down low level, so that we can query the OpenGay API and give us something like, give me all jobs related to one SLE incident. In particular for aggregate tests, where you have tests that include multiple incident repositories. We want to introduce the feature to pause on any generic module failure in developer mode, not only something like a third screen or check screen failure, which can make the development mode more useful for serial terminal based tests. I mentioned that we can tweak the limit of results that are shown on various OpenGA pages or API routes. And we also want to make sure that we do have a limit on basically all routes that we provide to, to prevent denial of service attack surfaces, or to prevent unintended performance problems on instances overloaded by certain requests. And yeah, and some minor code rework also planning. About the Workable tickets, so what we plan there is, I mentioned that we had the outage of PowerPC for multiple weeks, and we managed to bring up a new machine replacing former O3 worker Power 8, but we still plan to investigate like what's going on with the machine. Can we recover it, because it should be usable? It's just that the remote control capabilities are limited. So this is what we are looking into. But also there's another spare machine which we could set up for testing for the same purpose, which we could also set up. So this is what those 2 tickets are about. Then there was a problem with 2 bare metal specific machines tested, where we need to find out why those machines are causing sporadic failures, and they have a higher fail ratio regarding sporadic failures compared to other machines. And then this is a feature request to identify reproducible product issues using OpenGA Investigate. So the plan there is that with the OpenGA Investigate comments, where an OpenGA comment is appearing telling us about OpenGA tests which are specifically triggered to find out, is an issue reproducible, does the test pass or fail if we go back to the last good test? Does the test pass or fail if we go back to the last good product build? And based on the combination of those results, we can derive, is this a likely product issue or test issue? So we want to identify reproducible product issues using the combined results from OpenKey Investigate. So that, comment would appear that would tell you this is very likely a product regression. Okay. And there is work related to QMBot, sleep maintenance tests. For example, there was an interesting case where lately the UEM dashboard was completely empty. It turned out the problem was that the database behind Smelt was offline. So Smelt itself was reachable, but it didn't provide any data. And that then ended up as no data being synced to the dashboard. So the dashboard showed up completely empty as if there would be no incidents at all. Sorry, I'm actually confusing issues. That was one issue that we were working on, and then this issue is about the approval step. Here, the problem is that there's sometimes like a mismatch, and in that case, the approval step said there are failing jobs, and this is why an incident cannot be improved. But in the dashboard, it was visible that actually there were no tests related to that, which can happen. So the message is just very misleading. And what we should do is we should make sure that we can distinguish the case of there are failing tests which block the approval, as well as there are no tests, and this is blocking approval. Yeah, the others I don't need to mention it. And that's about it. So yeah, what is your feedback regarding our plan that we work on? What questions do you have? Or is there something else that you think should be here and we missed? Okay. No comments on that. That's okay. Let me point out that for the plan of the workshop itself, the next topic that I plan next week, we will skip the workshop, and after that, the next week after that, I plan to gather feedback from you guys how we react on user reports and monitoring alerts. So the last time we talked about how do we support in contributions pull request review, and in 2 weeks from now, I would really like to hear how we react on user reports and monitoring alerts, your feedback on that. So with that, let me thank you.
What do you mean user report?
Second.
What do you mean user report?
Like you bring up a question in chat, okay, and you ask like, hey, is OpenKey SUSE down, or what's the problem with this worker, or support questions, problem reports, feature wishes, anything like that in, let's say, in any kind of communication channel. Okay. Good. So I will stop the recording now.